Yes, sir. We sound good.
I'm sound. You see, you selfish. Go ahead.
Because I was the only one talking at the time.
I'm sounding good.
We sound
selfish,
good.
selfish. Let's do it.
Ready? All right. Welcome back to the Children of the Trenches podcast. You are now tuned in to episode 16 with your host, Javion the Professor Cardinal.
Anthony Finesse Hess.
And we have our very, very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Stephen Bello.
Stephen Bello.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no,
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And so Stephen, I believe you told me 31 years of experience in real estate?
Yes, I've been full-time in real estate sales for 31 years. Started when I was 21 here in Long Beach and been doing it here ever since. I trained at Century 21 Action by a very, very famous trainer. His name is Jim Utterback. I shouldn't have said was. I don't want to wish anything on him. Jim is well into his 90s now, and he still lives in Naples, but he's a legend around here for training folks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you from Long Beach? Did you grow up in Long Beach as well?
No, originally I grew up in New York. I've been out here with my family since I was a teenager, and pretty much in the South Bay area, from Torrance and then to Long Beach, and then I stuck here, and that was the end of it.
And what made you pick real estate? What is it about real estate that made you say, okay, this is what I want to do, with my life?
So originally, I thought that I was going to be this big real estate investor, and the only way to go do that is to go get your real estate license. And that was absolutely wrong. So the only reason to get your real estate license is because you want to represent other people that have money so they can invest in real estate, and then you can be their agent. And then after you get your license, you find out that there's lots of legal restrictions just having a license that you can't do as a buyer or seller, but you could do if you didn't have a license. So you want to be a big investor, go find yourself a good real estate agent. Don't get your license.
Don't get your license yourself.
Yeah, don't do it yourself. But if you want to make a good living and a career and do something that's fun, yeah, go get your real estate license. It's a lot of fun. And as I told you earlier, it ain't easy, but it isn't complicated. So as long as you work hard and you put the hours in, you'll be that 20% that makes 80% of the money for the office. Or actually industry-wide, it's the 20% that makes the 80% of the money. That's pretty much in every field, probably.
Yeah.
You got the 80% are lazy, and the other 20% and they grind.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So when you began studying real estate, did you already have in mind that you wanted to do commercial real estate specifically, or did it kind of just like fall into play?
Fell into it. So originally, when I got licensed, I didn't even know anything about commercial. I really didn't even know it existed.
Okay.
And the majority of the state of California has some obscene amount of licensed agents. I think it's 450,000 licensed agents in the state of California. I'm going to Google this when you give us a break because I could be wrong. But anyway, I would say that a very, very tiny percentage of those people do what I do. Very, very small percentage. In the whole city of Long Beach, you've got thousands of licensed real estate agents, but I think there's only about 60 of us.
That does
Maybe. And it's the same guys I've been working with for decades. And it's a real niche.
And speaking of niche, do you recommend somebody to find a niche or stick to it, or to just try to do and dabble in a little bit of everything?
Oh no, you gotta pick a horse and go with that, because you start dabbling in 10 different things, you're only going to end up doing 10 things terribly. So you got to focus on one thing only and be the best at that one thing.
Yes,
That's my thought. So I started in residential, and then I got out of residential because I just wasn't, I'll get into it later, but I just wasn't doing as well as I wanted to. And then I took a year off and then got back in by accident into commercial real estate. Some guy was starting a real estate office in Long Beach and asked if I would join. I still had a license. I said, yeah, let's go do this. And I have been doing leasing and sales of office buildings, retail buildings, warehouses since. And it's way different than residential. Way, way different.
Now, for those people who might not know exactly how is commercial real estate different, and how, like, pretty much what is, commercial real estate?
So commercial real estate is a property that is occupied by a business.
Okay.
Period. It is, you don't live in it, and that disqualifies it if you live in it. It's either going to be single family residence, duplex, triplex, fourplex, and then after that they just call it multifamily. And again, people are living in those, and that's a whole different niche from what I do. And I do primarily leasing. I do sales, but I'd say about 75% of my business is leasing.
Okay.
Most people lease.
Yeah.
Jack in the Box, Sherwin-Williams, all these retailers, all the big hit wigs that you see, they all lease.
Okay.
And someone's got to be their landlord, and someone has to negotiate the leases and know how to read the leases. I'm not an attorney. I'm not supposed to act like one, but the nature of the business is that the landlords generally don't like spending money on attorneys, and so they expect me to handle writing the leases, putting in the addendums, the amendments, and doing all that stuff.
Now,
Go ahead.
I would imagine that would be a safer investment to be a landlord for a big business, like how you said, Jack in the Box or a Carl's Jr. or something, because I'm pretty sure they will. It's more a business. They're going to pay on time rather than you're leasing out or you're renting out like your house, and you might have some tenants that might not pay. Would you say that it's a safer investment, leasing out land, a land lease for a big business?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So you're guaranteed as long as they're paying the rent on time.
Yeah.
In anything. But like, say for example, I sold a building to a client. It was a Sherwin-Williams in Oregon,
Oh, okay.
and I can do deals anywhere in the United States, and there's a way to do that. There's a lot of states that reciprocate with the state of California. Say, yeah, you have a California license. It's hard to get one of those. We'll accept you to do business in our state. Some of them have small requirements. Some of them don't allow it, but if they don't, then you just work through another broker in that state. So it's really easy to get around. But anyway, the Sherwin-Williams, the client was thrilled. She's getting a fixed rate of return on her money, and Sherwin-Williams has a long-term lease.
Okay.
Their stock is doing fantastic, like this guy. And they pay the rent on time. That part is not the risky part. Okay. The risky part is when the lease is up, Sherwin-Williams decides that they don't want to stay. So now you've got a commercial building, one tenant, not like an apartment building where if one tenant out of 10 leaves, it's only 10%, then you're good. 90% of your rent's still coming in. But if one tenant leaves, that means that you have to go and market the building, get it leased up. And I told this client that in this situation, based on the size of building and the market conditions and so forth, this owner of this building is going to have $50,000 set aside just in costs to get it released. Unlike an apartment, you paint, carpet, and you're done. There's going to be a lot more involved with leasing out to a commercial tenant. That's the downside. The upside is that if they do everything they're supposed to do, some of these people sign 35-year leases. You just never hear from them.
Oh, wow.
And I'm working on a lease right now with Harbor Freight Tools, and they'll be doing a 35-year deal total. And the landlord that I'm representing is hoping that he never hears from them for 35 years.
Yeah, that's a jackpot right there. You get 35 years of rental income coming every year.
But unlike an apartment, they renew, every few years or something. A new tenant comes in, you can always raise the rent. You can't do that with these leases. It's fixed from day one.
Okay.
All the way through year 35.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So when you go through the leasing process, is there a certain requirement that one would have to meet to be able to, just be able to lease out that particular property?
Like financial?
Yeah, well, financial, and being able to meet up to like its expectations, shall I say, like expectations as far as like success when they open up for business.
Okay, so depends on the landlord.
Okay.
I was telling Alex that I used to represent here in Long Beach a big landlord. It was Bixby Land Company. They're not around here anymore. They were the Bixbys. And I was exclusively handling all of their industrial leasing, the warehouses and stuff. And they had a rule. It was called the 10-10 rule. The company had to be in business for 10 years or have a minimum of $10 million net worth. Otherwise, they wanted to have someone personally guarantee the lease.
Okay.
So that would be that standard of, what it takes to lease a space. Mom and pop, though, they're way more relaxed on that. They just want to get a tenant in there, and they like to say, well, I just want to meet the tenant, and I'll probably just go based on my gut feeling. It just depends.
Now, you personally, do you prefer to work with those large companies, or do you prefer to work with kind of mom and pop and more smaller landlords?
My preference is to work with the smaller landlords, and the reason why is because they're just they're a lot easier to work with. So let's say I work with a mom and pop that's worth, I don't know, under $20 million, let's say. Now that's a very wealthy family, but that's very different than working with a company that's worth 10 billion, because you're never going to work with the person who's in charge of the company. You're always going to be working with an employee. And it's happened so often where you're going through, it takes a long time to get a deal through these big companies because they just move so slow. And then you get down to the end, and the person you're working with, they got fired, or they moved up the ladder, or they went to another company, and then you got to start all over again with someone else. You don't deal with that with a mom and pop. You're dealing with the president of the company. Guy's worth millions and millions. He knows what he wants, and he has a vested interest in what it is that I'm trying to bring to the table. If you're an employee working for a big multinational company, and they have employees, it's just not the same. They don't have the skin in the game like the guy who started the business. They're just not as concerned. They have a set of rules that they have to follow, and they don't care about me. That's for sure. So.
And I wanted to pretty much ask you about determining the worth of these commercial properties, because I know residential properties, like their worth are based on like comparables and what the other homes are sold in the area. But how do you determine the worth of a commercial property?
It's two ways.
Okay.
One, well, I take that back. There's more than two ways. There's an income approach. That's the value based on the amount of money it generates.
Okay.
There is a comparable approach, which you just said, based on what others have sold for or what others are available for in the area. And then the third one is the buildable approach. What would it cost you to build the building? And then you back it out based on how much the land is. Generally speaking, for the stuff that I sell, a lot of it is in the income approach. So if you're trying to sell, say, the Sherwin-Williams or the Harbor Freight Tools or Jack in the Box or one of those, the building is only worth the amount of money that the tenant is paying.
Okay.
Because let's say the tenant is in an old lease and they're paying 1/3 of what market is. Well, sorry, the building's worth less, especially if they're locked in for a long time. And then the new buyer comes in and says, well, I'm not going to pay a top dollar for it. I'm only collecting this much. And so it doesn't make sense. If it's a building, let's say, for example, for this building here that's occupied by this boxing business, fitness business, this building is worth only what another building down the street would be selling for. That's the comparable approach.
Oh, okay.
So the buyer for this building, who's going to be let's say the tenant, let's say the owner of the business wants to buy the building, then they would price this building based on what the buildings down the street are going to be selling for. And they can argue because the boxing guy doesn't care if it's here or 2 blocks that way, as long as the building works. So they only compare it to other buildings. You can't do that when you're buying an investment property, because every lease is different, every tenant is different, the risk involved as a buyer is different based on who the tenant is. There's a lot of different factors, and so that one's going to be based on the income.
Okay. And now, do you focus on buildings that's already have structure, or do you work with development, or
All of it.
all of it?
Yeah. So right now, I explained to you the deal that I'm doing with Harbor Freight Tools. That one is called a build to suit.
Okay.
So that phrase means that the owner of the property is going to build to suit the tenant. Okay. So we have a vacant lot. The owner's going to go and put $4 million into the building.
Wow.
And the tenant is going to sign a 10-year base lease with options, 5 years, each option that leads out to 35 years. And the owner is going to calculate their risk for their investment of the $4 million plus the land that they own, and determine whether or not it's worth it for them to go forward with the transaction. And they're going to do it, based only on the first 10 years because that's the only guaranteed part of the deal. So they would like for Harbor Freight to stay for the 5-year options afterwards, but the only guarantee is the first 10 because that's all they're signing up for.
Okay.
So you have to base all of your return on your investment based on solely on the first 10 years.
First 10 years. Wow. And I wanted to ask you also, pretty much about it slipped my mind. I'm trying to make sure he don't pee on this.
Why don't we send him over to Alex?
Yeah. We're gonna edit this out because I'm over here trying to make sure he don't use the bathroom. Yeah. So I wanted to also ask you about the different loans that's available for, because I know for residential you have the FHA loans, you have different. Is there anything like that for commercial properties, things to help the buyer? Not necessarily. There are.
Yeah, there are, but only for business owners that are buying a building. Okay. So they would go through the equivalent of FHA would be SBA, Small Business Association, and they have a program where you put down 10% only, and then you can buy a building. It's up to a maximum of like $4 million or whatever the number is, and they give you a fully amortized 25-year loan, as opposed to if you were to finance a Jack in the Box or a Carl's Jr., one of those things. Usually that they would give you a 20 or 25-year amortization, but the loan's going to be due in 10. So when year 10 comes, bank says, I want all my money back. I gave you a low payment based on a 25-year deal, but I want you to either, and it's BS. It's the nature of the industry, but really all the bank is trying to do is to get the borrower to refinance the loan through them. And then they get all the points and all the loan fees all up again every 10 years. Sometimes they're doing 7. You know what? That's not true. I shouldn't badmouth the banks all the time because the 10-year deal is pretty standard. But what if there's only 10 years left on the lease?
Yeah.
Or 8 years left on the lease? The banks will say, well, it's going to be due in 8. So, if it's a short lease, they still may loan on it, but they're going to do it based on how long the lease is.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about like franchisers. So pretty much, let's say if I wanted to franchise a Jack in the Box or anything, will I just come to you first? Like, hey, I got approved to open up a franchise. Can you help me find a building? Is that how it works? Or how
usually not. Okay. So usually if you go through, I'm not even sure if Jack in the Box has any more franchises because they're corporate. But let's say you were to go through a Subway sandwiches, and they would send you to Subway Sandwich School, and they have their people that will actually go scout spaces. And they have all the demographics already done. They say, this is the area we have to be in. This is the type of demographics. This is the type of traffic count we've got to have. So they have their formulas all together. And so they know exactly where they're going to go look. And by that time, you've already gone through Subway school. You've already learned how to make sandwiches. You've already learned how to do the financials. You've already learned how to hire and fire. They've already put you through all those classes. And that's the norm for franchises. So they have their own department. They do sometimes will reach out to local brokers. That does happen. Not so often, but it does. And I have worked with franchisees before because you'll have maybe a scout for a franchise, but they're in the Midwest and they're really not familiar with the neighborhood. So they'll come and they'll be super cool and say, hey, can you help us out? I can see you got a lot of listings around here. You know the area. And so then I would be working with them.
Okay. Awesome.
What are some of the notable franchises that you've worked with in the past?
Oh my gosh. It's funny. I've worked with a lot of franchises that I don't even remember because they're not around anymore.
Are you serious?
Because they don't last. Oh man, there was a franchise for selling window coverings. I remember once there was another one, a few interior design ones, another for flooring only. There was a franchise for it wasn't I have done Subways, Montessori schools. A couple of other random ones, but like I was saying, it's not normal. Usually they have their own in-house people that handle those sorts of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I personally wanted to open up a like an In-N-Out, like a Chick-fil-A. They probably gonna give me stuff for this because I'm vegan. But I know I wanted to open up like an In-N-Out and because you've never seen an In-N-Out line that wasn't packed. You've never seen a Chick-fil-A line that wasn't packed. And I feel like
but In-N-Out, they don't sell.
They don't?
No, they won't even go. They won't even go public.
Are you serious?
They refused.
Wow.
Yeah, They're pretty big,
Yeah.
but they're not McDonald's.
Oh yeah.
They're not Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
They're mostly around this side of the U.S., but they're awesome and famous, and they've got a great concept. But they won't go public. People have asked them, and they won't do it, and they won't sell any of their stores to anybody.
So there's one person owns all those all those In-N-Outs.
It's from what I understand, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's the daughter.
Wow.
Is that right?
The daughter owns them all? She's up. She's up. And it's crazy that she brought up McDonald's because I remember I was listening to this podcast before and they were speaking with some head guy or some top guy at McDonald's, and then he was telling the story and he pretty much asked like what do you think, McDonald's business is like? And of course the obvious answer was like, selling burgers.
Yeah, but they're in the real estate business.
They're in the real estate business. He said the main business of the McDonald's is real estate.
I got a question. I remember you were talking about like territory. Could you go over that?
Alex has a question. Wait, repeat the question, Alex.
Alexander Lowe from episode 7, season 1. Another return.
So I had a question on. We were talking a while ago about territory. You're going over territory, and when you were telling me that, I had no idea about that when it came to real estate. So could you go over that a little bit?
Yeah. So, for example, using the McDonald's example, and I said, you want to really get a good idea, go watch the movie The Founder with Michael Keaton. Great movie, and it's very accurate.
Everybody.
So you'll have McDonald's Corporation, who doesn't sell any burgers. McDonald's franchisees, they sell burgers. But the franchisor, they don't sell any burgers at all. All they do is lease spaces to the franchisees. From what I understand, the majority of the company, how it works is that they'll have each franchisee will be given a territory.
Okay.
And within that territory, they can open up stores as they see fit. But McDonald's will only allow them to open stores on land that they own, that they're going to lease back to the franchisee. And at least that's how they've been doing it for a while. I do know of some landlords that did have McDonald's land, and it wasn't part of the corporation. I mean, there's exceptions to everything. But that's just McDonald's. Let's talk about other franchisees where, for example, it doesn't even have to be a retailer. It could be Keller Williams, real estate company. They're a franchise. So what they do is you have the mothership, Mr. Gary Keller, and then it feeds down to the people that have the territories. Let's say that you have all of California as a territory. And then all of California, below that is another territory owner that owns regions within California. And then under that, you've got the franchisee that has one section within a region that has 25 Keller Williams with 25 different owners. All of those Keller Williams have to kick money up to that regional guy that owns that territory. That regional guy's got to kick it up to the state guy that owns the entire state territory. And then that guy's got to kick it up to the mothership for all of it. Wow. Everybody's making money all the way up. And that's how these zones work, these regions work. So the person is not even in the business of selling real estate or making hamburgers. All they do is collect rent from the territory tenants, the business owners who pay, and then they kick it upstairs.
And honestly, when you think about it, that's pretty much the greatest business model that they can possibly have, because they don't have to really worry about burger sales, and they don't have to really worry about, they still don't have to worry about those things, correct? Or only the franchisees?
Well, the franchisees, now they make demands on the franchisor.
Oh,
they're like,
okay.
hey man, we're paying you these fees. It's not just for your health.
Yeah.
We're paying you these fees because you're supposed to be giving us a certain amount of marketing, national marketing, or you're supposed to be giving us local marketing. Or, hey, I'm not getting the in-store advertising that you promised me. You were going to have pictures of Ronald McDonald all over my store. I haven't seen any. Where's the stuffed animals I'm supposed to give to the kids? So all of these things, the franchisor is still providing services, and they're still getting hammered by the franchisees to provide stuff. And let's just say if a franchisee goes, say they don't run the business well, or they get sick, or something happens, the franchisor can't let that location go dark. They're going to have to step in and run it until they get another operator in there. And so there's those sorts of things. Those responsibilities come along with it too.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now I remember before the camera started rolling, you were mentioning me the difference between a broker and just a regular agent.
Yeah.
Can we dig into that?
Yeah.
And can we talk about what actually made you decide to get your broker's license?
So when everyone starts to sell real estate, they have to start out with getting a salesperson's license. It's super basic. You take the classes, you take the tests, which qualify you to take the state exam. Once you take the state exam, you pass, you get your real estate license to sell real estate, but you can't do anything with it because you can't sell real estate as a salesperson unless you have a broker to run your license through.
Okay.
So you have to have a responsible broker that will take the liability, train you, watch all the transactions, make sure that you know what you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Once you've been doing that salesperson gig for long enough, then you can decide if you want to get a broker's license. So I got my broker's license about 8 or 9 years after I was an agent. You need a couple of years. You need someone to sign off. You need to qualify. You need to take, I think, 8 college level classes. And then you go and take the exam. You pass that. You can still work in the same office you were working with. You don't have to leave just because you have a broker's license. You can still work with the broker that you had when you had a salesperson's license, but you would just be a broker associate. The only advantage to having that broker's license is doing your own deals without the broker. So let's say, for example, you get fired, or you really technically can't get fired because you're not technically employed. You're a subcontractor.
Okay.
But you don't get along. You decide to leave the office. You can still go do deals out of your house if you have a broker's license. You can still do deals anywhere you want. You can go ahead and get a few people that have salesperson's licenses and say, you want to do deals through me, I'll give you a 90% commission split or an 80% commission split, and then I'll get the 10% or the 20%. And you can do that too. So it allows you flexibility.
Yeah. Wow.
I got to tell you, it was the best thing I did because I needed it. I had a fallout with a company I was at, and then I went to a mom and pop company, and their broker quit. And then I was able to step in that day
As the broker.
and take it over, and I was a broker for about 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned a state. Now you my bad. Wait, you mentioned that you have to take a state exam, right? Now, when you try to convert over to other states, do you have to take the same exam for that particular state, or could you?
Well, in some states they may make you want to do that, but you just don't have to because you can just go work through another broker that's already there, that's established.
Okay.
And then they can pay you a referral fee. Referral fee could be anything. It can be 10% of the deal, or it could be 99% of the deal, whatever you work out with them. So that's where you can do out-of-state deals. Usually how it works is they say, look, if you're going to do an out-of-state deal, if you're representing the buyer, all the paperwork for the buyer's got to be done in California.
Okay.
All the paperwork for the seller's got to be done in the other state.
Okay.
And then you work with the other broker there.
Okay.
And now, the internet is screwed everything up. I mean, it used to be that all the information I had was mine and nobody could see it. Now you guys can go online. You can put in an address. You can see if it's on the market, how much it goes for.
Yeah.
You can call the broker directly. It wasn't like that when I first started. It was definitely more snobby of an industry, back then.
Yes, sir. Last two?
And now you mentioned you mentioned that the internet can kind of make that information inconclusive.
Inconclusive?
No.
Non-exclusive.
Non-exclusive. That's the word I was
Right.
looking for. Not exclusive. Yeah. Excuse me. But how does the internet and social media kind of affect your approach to it? Is there a different approach that you would take? Where as opposed a few years later. I mean, a few years before.
So when I first started, there was no one had a computer at their desk. There was zero. There was one computer in the office, maybe two, that had the multiple listing service on it. You had to go to that computer. You do whatever search was. There was always a line of people behind you. And then, or you'd set up a calendar, the event, I need to use a computer at this time. And then it would print out on this dot matrix printer. And then when it prints out, you would tear it. It's perforated. And then you had to tear the perforated ends off of it to make it a real page, because there was like little holes in it for the circular thing to push the paper through. And then you would put that in a binder, and you would take it to your client. And that was gold, because the client couldn't get that information, and you were it. And so you'd be working for a good firm where you have all of these clients coming in, and they would want, they'd want to lease or buy a building, or they'd want you to sell or lease theirs for them. They couldn't go anywhere else, because there was only so many people out there that had the information. Mm-hmm. Now everyone's got the information. So how has it changed for me? Well, one, I get a lot more buyers and tenants that call me direct, because they can just go online for free and just look it up. You go to LoopNet, LOOPNET.com, and that's a website for commercial real estate. Okay. You can go to BizBuy Now, BizBuy, BizBuyNet, NET, business opportunities only. People wanting to sell the boxing business, or a dry cleaner, or sell a burger business, or a pizza business, but not the building, not the lease, just the business itself. So there's ways for people to just go online and do that now. What I like about it is that now they call me direct. Mm-hmm. Before it was mostly brokers calling me. And then the other thing I don't like about it is now amateurs are calling me. Mm-hmm. People that have no business doing complicated transactions, but they have a real estate license. And now they have access to a multiple listing service they never had access before when I started. And it's kind of a pain when you're dealing with a beginner. They just got their real estate license, and they want to do a build-to-suit for a franchisee, which is one of the most difficult transactions you can ever work on. And it's kind of a pain. So, and I've done this before, where someone will come in and I'll be like, look, you don't have any experience, but how about this? How about if we work out a deal? You do nothing. I would rather give you half and you not be involved in it than me give you half and have a headache for 8 months longer than I need it to be. Mm-hmm. And then I will try to get them out of the transaction. Then I'll just do it and just pay them.
Yeah. Now, I think the last question. What's up?
Alex has another question, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I can go last, because I was just going to ask you about any books that you would recommend. So I think we could finish off with that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll finish off with that one.
So you want me to go
Yeah, go ahead. Then I'm going to ask about books.
I just wanted to, I know Hess is going to finish off, but I just wanted to thank you for, coming and
almost definitely
spending your time with us. And I do got a story. It was funny because I was with you in Belmont Shore area a while ago, and I just remember I never told you I noticed this, but we were walking, I think we went to the taco place, and I noticed like every car driving down the road, everybody knew you screaming out the window, Steven. I'm like, what is going on?
Usually they say Bello.
Yeah.
They say Bello. Nobody
get it right. You get it right. It's not Stephen, dog. It's Bello.
but it was cool though. Like it was just everybody just after car after car after car, and I just always knew you were so like really genuine, and it was information. You would tell me you didn't have to, and you never would rush me when I would speak to you. And I just want to thank you for that. And
you're welcome.
Spending your time for sure.
Yeah,
so
you're
we
welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, this it's funny. This is a big city, but it's Mayberry. It's small, man. It's a small city. I don't know if you guys know this, but Long Beach is nicknamed for decades was Iowa by the sea. Yeah. Because there were so many people that moved here from Iowa. So we have this, I don't know of any city like this, it's this big, where I personally know more than I can count of people who went to the same elementary school as their grandparents, and they're now living in the house that their grandparents lived in, because they just pass it from generation to generation. That's a Midwest thing, and there's a lot of that goes on here in Long Beach. It's really crazy. So that's how all people say, hey Bello, it's a small town, and what has really helped or allowed me to get to meet a lot of these people has been doing a lot of community service. Big, thousands of hours of community service over the years. It's a must. Yes, sir. This is what I'm doing here. I want to if I have an opportunity to give away information that people actually want to listen to, yeah, let's go do it. Yeah, if I can help somebody, if I can help one person, I can help some people make a couple of bucks. Yeah, that'd be great. I'll be thrilled.
And that's pretty much was the basis on why we started the show, because we pretty much wanted to entertain and also give information out to people that, that's like us, that we didn't have access to, because I often think about like the stuff that I learned now through this show and just through other sources. Imagine if I would have learned this at 16 or 15, I probably would be in a whole
You
different...
and I, man, same deal. I had to screw around for 25 years before I figured it out. I'm not saying 25 years old. I meant 25 years after 25 years. There's Jim Rohn, great speaker, Rohn. He has thousands of videos. He's since passed away. Thousands of videos on YouTube. You asked me earlier about recommendations for books or ways to learn. Jim Rohn, amazing speaker, and one of the things that he always says is be sure to always work harder on yourself than you do on your job, and working hard on your job will earn you a fantastic living. Working hard on yourself will earn you a fortune. And that goes in any field. So when you're asking me what books would one read to get more motivated, make more money in real estate, none of them are going to be real estate books. They're all going to be books about how to make yourself a better person. Talking about the premise of this show, giving people the opportunity to hear information that they normally would not have had the opportunity to hear. Tony Robbins, you know him? Yes, sir. Anthony Robbins goes to a guy named Ray Dalio, who everyone's heard of, the largest hedge fund manager in history. And Ray Dalio had a standard that if you weren't worth more than $100 million, you didn't get spoken to by him, because he had such a line of people lining up to get his advice. And so finally it got to a point where it doesn't matter what you're worth, I can't take on any more clients, you're done. So Tony Robbins goes to Ray Dalio and says, Tony Robbins, he's no schlep. The guy's worth $500 million, and he does a ton of charity work, tons and tons of work to feed homeless families, feed families all over the world. But he goes to Ray Dalio, he goes, what are you going to do with all this information you got? You going to take it to your grave? He goes, this is stupid. He goes, let's go ahead and write a book. And they did. And they ended up writing the book called, no, that was Ray's book. That was Ray Dalio's book, was Principles. The Game of Finance. I read the book and I don't remember it. It was audiobooked, and it was 27 hours or something. Wow. It was a long book. And even Tony Robbins says, man, I should have cut that thing shorter. And I think he did make a shorter one afterwards. Money Master the Game was the name of the book. Great book.
Money Master the Game.
Another book. These are all life books, though. These are not real estate books, because it doesn't matter what you do for a living as long as you enjoy it. First book that I read, One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch. Peter Lynch used to be the biggest hedge fund guy in history, but that was back in the 70s, and he killed it with the Fidelity Magellan Fund. Absolutely just slaughtered it. But his take in the book was more about practical nature of money and business, and that's what I always want to tell people, is that follow certain rules. It doesn't matter what you want to do for a living. You want to be an MD, you want to be a fireman. It doesn't matter. Just don't spend more than you make. That's a rule.
Right.
People don't understand that rule. It boggles me. And they're like, I don't understand why I'm in debt. Well, you dumbass. You went and spent a whole bunch of money on a flat screen TV that you didn't need. Mm-hmm. The 58-inch that you had was great. Now you got a 98-inch. So, so don't spend more than you make. That's like the number one rule. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Great book.
Yes, sir. Robert Kiyosaki.
The Millionaire Next Door absolutely changed my finances. Completely changed them. It was a gift that was given to me by a client. She says that, look, thank you for selling me this building. It was a hard transaction. I want you to have this book. And I didn't really think much of it. I go, oh, great, she gave me a book. And then a couple of years later, I'm cleaning out the closet, and there the book is. And I start flipping through the pages. I couldn't put it down. It was a book more of statistics on who are the millionaires in this world. Mm-hmm. They're the next door neighbors that you don't know about. They, in the book at the time when they wrote it, they said the average 75% of all millionaires in the world hadn't earned more than like $50,000 or $70,000 a year in income ever. That's the most they've ever earned because they're just frugal. They watch their money. They don't spend it on dumb things. They're not looking for the biggest and the best. They would rather, instead of collecting watches and jewelry, they'd rather collect dollar bills. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole different attitude of how to make money that way. So books on real estate, I would say that anything, I would say get on YouTube, listen to Jim Rohn, listen to Tony Robbins, listen to Les Brown, Stephen Graham, Stephan Graham. He is crushing it. 30 years old, $10 million net worth. Wow. Started as a real estate agent, 100% all on his own in Los Angeles. Wow. So I would say that if you're going to do anything, it's more fun to go and listen to the videos because they're between, 10 minutes and an hour and you're done. And then you can go on to another one. But if you go like on my phone, I'll go to YouTube and I'm so proud of my, it's my library. You pay the extra money for YouTube and you go to library and all you've got right here, here's the history of all of these speakers that I'm listening to. Here's Jim Rohn right there. There's Nightingale, the 10X Rule. Great book.
Grant Cardone.
Yeah, great book, man. So there's thousands of them. Look at this. This is all I ever do. Yeah. So when I'm at the gym, usually I have my headset on. I don't want anyone to bother me, and I'll listen to that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, man, that's awesome. Yeah, like Alex said, man, we appreciate you for coming out.
Yeah,
for real.
I want you guys to know. Follow up with me. I'll give you my card.
Yes, sir.
Email me, call me, text me, whatever you want. And you want me to come back? We'll come back. Whatever. Yeah. Let's get the message out. You know what? Because the fact that you guys are doing this, are all of you guys under 30?
Yes, sir. Yes. I'm 24.
I'm 23.
Okay. You're the old one. Well, next to me. When I was serious when I was in my early 20s, because I started real estate at 21. I had my first mortgage when I was 21. I had my second house when I was 24. I was serious. My friends were out partying, and I was having to pay a mortgage. So that's a whole different attitude. The fact that you guys are here, you are in the top 10%, top 5%, because you are not out screwing around. Yes, and you're not out doing bad things either. So, because when I was in my teens in New York, that was one of the reasons why Mom wanted me out of New York, because I was getting in trouble. Okay. Anything I could get my hands on, it would miraculously disappear. And so finally she's like, I don't want him to end up dead, because it wasn't a great neighborhood where we were at. So grew up in Flushing, Queens.
Okay.
So I got serious because I met people like you're meeting me. Mm-hmm. I met people that influenced me in a positive manner and sent me in the right direction. I'm like, well, I want to be like them. They got nice stuff and they got a lot of money and they don't have to work so hard now. In the beginning, you got to work hard. In the beginning, you got to put in a lot of hours. I mean, I was working 80 hours a week, 90 hours sometimes, for years in my early 20s. That's what you got to do. But afterwards, it starts to taper off, and then you start to enjoy what you've put together.
Yes, sir. And I love that you said that, because honestly, I would rather work hard now in my 20s while I have the energy than work hard when I'm 30 or 40, So, yeah, man, let's put the time in now in our 20s so you can relax in your 30s and relax the rest of your life. But I know you're a very busy man, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up.
All right.
Yeah, like I
said.
All right. We appreciate you for coming out. Alex, we appreciate you for, helping us contact him. And this has been episode 16 of the... Oh, I'll just play.
Nah,
This,
nah,
this has been episode 16 of the Children of the Trenches podcast with your host, Anthony Finesse Hess.
Javion, the Professor Cardinal.
Stephen Bello, or just call me Bello. There's too many Stevens around. That's why.
I call him Bello.
Bello.
And we out. Yeah.
Yeah.